All right, guys, welcome to Powerline Podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Lucas. All right, this week's episode is with Paul Koehler. This is Paul's second time on the show. If you go back and listen to episode 111, this is where you can get to know Paul, his complete backstory. But in a nutshell, Paul lost his daughter to brain cancer, and him and another group of guys started a foundation called Lineman for Kids, where they go to the International Lineman Rodeo, take in sponsorships, donations, that sort of thing, and all of the proceeds go to St. Jude's Hospital. It's an amazing, amazing program. So the International Lineman Rodeo just happened, and this is a bit of a recap on how it went and what they were able to do support-wise this year, along with a bunch of other stuff. We dive into line work, and we talk for an hour and a half. It's about the trade, the industry, and all that good stuff. So I hope you enjoy this one and get some value out of it. Talk to you later. Peace. All right, dude. We're good to go, Paul. So welcome to round 2 Powerline Podcast. I'm super excited to talk to you again. Just with, we talked prior to the International Lineman Rodeo, talked a lot about climbing for kids and that sort of thing, got your backstory, all that. So I'm excited to dive into how the experience was, how you guys did, whether you made some good funds for the program and all those sorts of things. So welcome to the show again.
Thanks, man. Good to see your face again.
Yeah, heck yeah. I know, this is good. We should make it a regular thing. I love it.
Yeah. So start off with Climb for Kids. Tremendous success. At the time of the check presentation on stage, we raised over $107,000 that was given to St. Jude. And as of today, I think we're at like $111,000.
Dang, man.
People contributed after that. And just an amazing weekend.
No, it's
just
good.
Thinking back, it was great. Met some people, heard some stories from other families about what they went through with St. Jude, that touched us. Met some strangers that just wanted to help, We had a big raffle before the rodeo during the convention, and the vendors that turned out to donate tools, equipment, FR clothes, rain suits, calendar, any little thing, hats from random vendors. We started off with one table, probably like a 10-foot round banquet table. We ended up having 3 of those tables completely packed with stuff, and it was unbelievable. Everybody walking by and donating and
did you find like a considerable difference between like last year and this year, just with like it being the second, because it's really like the second iteration of it, from like the second time around where people like a little more familiar with it and like, okay, this is awesome. It's nice to see this like carrying forward, because like I'm sure lots of these sorts of things kind of stop after the first 1 or 2 times. Like people run out of steam, or it's hard now. It's like it's work to keep it going, right?
Yeah. It took a team to do. It wasn't just me, Jason, and another guy. There was probably 20, 25, 30 people there helping us. Different awesome shifts working the booth, because we had the booth Thursday, all day Friday, manning the booth, taking raffle tickets, writing down names, and we kept it busy. And there was also a silent auction. Jason did 2 prints he drew and poems with it, so you can bid on those prints, which was a amazing success with that too. So it all went into the same one big pot at the end. And everybody was asking us what the total was. Only 3 of us knew what it was going on stage, and so the whole rodeo found out at once. So it was amazing.
That's amazing.
Proud of everybody that contributed. Thank you for everybody, whether it was, $20 or a lot more than that. Some people donate. I don't want to thank individual people, because I don't want to forget individual people.
For sure.
It was a group effort, and we had a great spot. Thank you to the International Lineman Rodeo, who let us set up the Climbing for Kids outside the convention center. You had to walk by us twice, and we had two salespeople, my son Kipton and Jason's daughter Bristol. They get the big Climbing for Kids posters, and they would go out, and as you were walking in, they were like, donate to St. Jude. We got to donate to St. Jude. It's like you couldn't say no to those two people, so we wrangled a lot of money that way.
That's amazing. That's so cool, though.
Yeah.
Oh, man, that's so good. Did you find that so like diving into like the advice or need for next year, like did you find that it's individuals giving, or was it would you like to see some more support from businesses, or was it pretty good from like businesses and organizations, or was it like majority individual or combination of both?
I would say we had some pretty hefty donations by a couple corporations. So
Cool.
Proportionally wise, it was probably more company wise, but the individual donations were great. But there was so many companies that came up to us and said, I didn't know about this. How can I get involved next year? We want to do something
Amazing.
for you. So as this grows and gets bigger, we're going to, we already got, here's my business card, email me, we're going to do an internal donation, company match donation. That happened a couple times with some great companies that reached out right at the end. They did some company match donations, and it turned out tremendous. There's some things we're going to tweak, make it a little faster, make it a little more streamlined. But this was our first time doing the raffle, so we can improve on those things a little bit, because there was a line of people waiting, and you can only wait so long. And we got some ideas. We're going to talk about it here in about another month. We're going to get back together and start over. I'm not sure when the actual donation stops. So if you go to my Instagram still and you click the link in my bio, you can still donate to Climbing for Kids. And they're supposed to get back to us. I don't know when that link actually ends, and a new one will start right away.
Oh, okay.
So we'll start, we'll start gathering money throughout the year.
For sure. I like the idea of the raffle. I didn't realize you guys were doing that too. Like that's a great way for, businesses to donate things too that can be raffled off, things of meaning, or artists like Jason can donate things to be raffled. Silent auction. That's cool. It's a good idea.
Yeah, it definitely brought people to our booth.
Yeah.
And 100% of the stuff was donated, and I want to emphasize 100% of that money went to St. Jude. There was no middleman, there's no fees, there's no I got to get this money back to pay for this. It's that $111,000, what 100% of it went to St. Jude, which is a really great thing. It's not like a GoFundMe where they take a little portion, which is great to do, but this is 100%.
Yeah. How was the rodeo experience? How'd you guys do? Did you enjoy that process and that as well, or how'd that go?
We had a blast. So if you want to look for our names, you just might want to go to the bottom and go up a couple, and that you'll find us.
How did Jason feel about that?
Oh, no, this is my team.
Oh,
me and my
just
brother
you.
and
Okay,
Jordan.
Jason
That was my
separate
team.
from that. Okay, gotcha.
So, no, that was just our team. That was team slow and steady. That's what we call ourselves. Look, going into it, we did a internal rodeo before we went out there, a little competition, and we finished second among all the teams. And then we got out there, we made some big mistakes right off the bat, and the competition was tough. Man, there's some great teams out there. But as Ameren, as a company, I was just looking up. I was like, I should have had this before. But like overall, we had a team finished 5th overall, 8th overall, and 20th. So 3 teams, the top 20 of the best. Very good showing from Ameren. We have an apprentice that finished something. I don't remember what he finished, but he did good. And it was, as a team, looking and seeing all those guys go on stage, we were proud to be part of it. A lot of these guys work super hard, like we all did. But if you work super hard and you don't bring home any hardware, it's
it's
it
not
sucks.
what it's about being there too, though. Like I've competed, I think 2 times, been there 5 times, and like just it's special to be there, and it's special to compete. And both experiences for me were different and unique and special in their own way, right? Like, it was really great to compete. And I like, hey, we hardly practiced. We were a small company, sent like one team or two teams just to like, for the experience of it. And that's what it was. And you couldn't expect anything more out of it. Those guys that win, like those guys like Jason, like they work for that. Like that's what they do. They build towards that. They build their team around that. They practice, they put in the work to get to that spot. So to like just show up as somebody who's never practiced and expect to come home with hardware is, you got to be something real special to do that. And especially this year, because this year was like the most attended rodeo ever in history as well.
Yeah. So. 292 teams. I just looked it up. We're there times 3. Crazy. So that's almost 1,000 guys competing against each other. But yeah, we're the teams that won it, kudos to them. I watched some of them teams and they deserve it. And our teams that finished up that high, they were just a couple seconds off on a couple things or just a tweak on another thing. So as a team, we're right up there, I think, with some of the best teams in the country.
Yeah. I'll always continue to promote and talk highly of the International Lineman Rodeo just for like what it does for our trade, our industry, the families, the brotherhood, sisterhood, like all of that combined. Like, it's just such a great event in my mind for this industry and for this trade. Like, it's not just about the hardware, like it's just such a great experience to be there. Even if you're not competing, you walk around and see the families that are there, like cheering their dads on and their moms on. Like, that's so awesome. It's so special. It's cool.
Yeah, and I think how the weather was really cold and a little rainy that day, and the lines looked long, but man, they went through them. They must have had more judges or something, because we got in the back of a line in the years past. We're going to be here for 2 hours, and we're out of the event in less than an hour. It was, kudos to who was running all the rodeo stuff, because it went really smooth. It was nice. Yeah. We're out of there early. That's the thing. Get done, get out of there. And you can start having a little fun. Which
is amazing too, because to think of like how big the rodeo has grown, 1,000 men and women competing, plus all the spectators, is at least a couple more thousand people there. Like, that's pretty impressive to roll through. You think they'd have struggles when things grow and expand. You think they'd have more problems, but to tackle it like that and do better, that's awesome. That's really cool.
Yeah. It was as best as one I've ever been to. I think that was my 10th or 11th one I've been out there. So
super cool. What do you expect from next year? What's the plans going forward for Climbing for Kids for next year?
Yeah, I think we're just going to keep rolling what we're doing. I think the auction went super well. It brings people to your booth. It's not, booths are in the convention. We were in the hallway.
Yeah.
Right outside the door. That's what I say, the booth. But
yeah.
I'd like to see some companies do like we at Ameren do. We do internal fundraisers. I'd like to see more companies do that. We give a T-shirt if you donate $50. The company sends you a nice Climbing for Kids T-shirt. Ameren paid for that, and that was a huge success. I'd like to see more companies do an internal match that participate in the rodeo. I think that's something that we could grow on. And we do have more contacts of some people from different companies now, like, hey, this company, we're talking to some people. So hopefully we'll reach out after the first year and try to get it more people like that involved. I think that's going to be a success to a bigger number every year.
Yeah, that's amazing, dude. And like this audience has grown quite a bit in the last few months, even since you were on the show last. So I just say to anybody listening that maybe hasn't listened to your story yet, go back and listen to, I can't remember the exact number, but go back and listen to Paul Koehler's episode. You'll get like the full background, the full history on
episode 111, man.
There you go. 111. That's right.
Episode 111.
That's right that? Too.
Yeah. You hear number 11.
Heck yeah.
Dude, I'm telling you.
That's so rad, man. That like shivers up my spine. Actually, I want to ask you about that story in a second, but I go back and listen to that episode. You'll get the full story of Climbing for Kids and how that came about and what it is. But I'll get you to just like give the Cole's notes on, a little backstory on what for anybody listening right now who is interested in it, what Climbing for Kids is, how that came about, and a little bit of that backstory and some backstory on yourself.
Yeah, just some quick one. Obviously, the full stories in episode 111. But yeah, I'm a lineman from Illinois. Climb for Kids was started by my friend Jason Novak a couple of years ago. This was our third time, and last year in March, my daughter was diagnosed with terminal brain cancer and was a St. Jude patient. They helped out tremendously with us and everything we needed at the time, whether it was doctors, nurses, psychologists, child life specialists, social workers, you name it. There's a person at St. Jude that is a phone call away. No matter what it is, you could get a hold of somebody. Hey, I'm looking to do this. I'm looking to go here. I need this soon. Okay, we got you. It happened to us many times, and we just are trying to pay back. We lost our daughter almost a year ago here in a couple of weeks. So we're just trying to trying to do honor for her, I think, and pay back to so many people that helped us out, including St. Jude and all those families that need it.
It's amazing, dude. Yeah. So get on there, donate. Seriously, such a great cause, especially if you're in this industry and in this trade. Like when I first heard your story, Paul, you're a normal human being, a normal family, just like all of us out there, rocked by something out of the blue, out of nowhere. And that really can just like happen to any of us. And so it's important to like get behind things like this because this can happen to anybody and it directly like impacts this community. You're just a brother. Like your families could be the family that we spend time with, we work with, it's just such a great thing to get behind. If you're going to get behind anything, and you're in this industry, this is a thing to do. Like this is the one. This is the one you get behind. So yeah,
this is the one, man.
Yeah.
This is it. But also keep doing whatever else you're doing if you're contributing to it.
Sure.
There's no bad charity that I can think of and foundations that help out people in need. Yeah. This is just the one that's closest to our heart. I'm in the industry for 23 years now. I'm just proud to be part of something, proud to live on our legacy, and hope to grow this every year to come.
Yeah, that's amazing. Dude, I'm going to keep, like I told you before too, like I'll continue to help in any way we can, like pushing your messages out. So like, again, anybody listening who likes maybe putting this in the back of their brain, like it's something for next year or whatever, just continue to follow up with Powerline Podcasts, Instagram page or whatever social media I'm putting out, especially Instagram. Is a great place to like share these things and share links to these things and ways to get a hold of you and Climbing for Kids and donate. So just follow the page. I'll continue to promote your stuff too. Whenever you got something new flashing up or new links or anything like that, I'll be sure to help out that way.
Yeah, man, I text you all the time. I appreciate you. Appreciate what you're doing for the industry, not only for us, but getting the word out about the line trade in general. And I think you're doing an amazing thing. The studio is sick. I hope to get there one day.
Yeah.
Just even
this
crazy
right
what it's
here,
become.
Dude. Like even this right here, having the ability to put you up on a big TV and film it with multiple camera angles and like turn it into actually something that somebody might want to watch on YouTube versus the flat green screen that we had before. Like even this is just, it's amazing. In person is always better, but this is really cool that we can even do something like this.
Yeah, man, it's great. You had some pretty sick guests on recently. I always enjoy I do text you. I don't, hopefully not too much, but
no, not at all. I love it.
You always talk about value, and I always seem to get some value out of every one of your episodes. And
that means a lot.
Anybody who's listening, yeah, man, it's great. I do have one thing. I was thinking about something
Sure.
that you're gonna like.
Yeah, let's go.
I think you had a missed opportunity with the astronaut.
Okay.
I think every lineman out there wants to know how much he's getting paid up there.
Oh, in space. Oh, damn. I don't know if he'd share that.
I don't know if he would either, but I think, man, I was just around 1,000 linemen, a couple weeks ago or whatever it was. And no matter who I was talking to, whether from California, Texas, New York, you get to talk a little bit. Well, how much you making, man? What's your scale? What are you working up there?
Maybe I should work that into the questions,
Yeah, I remember. I don't know. I don't know if every lineman does this, but I know in our back room we talk about all the time. You see a CEO of a company. If you don't think I was up looking what Duke Austin was making, you're wrong, man. I Googled it right away. What's he make? Like, oh.
Especially being a public traded company, hey?
Yeah, that's the easiest way to do it. Like my company, you can look up all the CEOs and stuff like that. And actually, it was surprising how I thought he would make a lot more than he did. Yeah. So
they probably get it in a lot.
That was
a
great
ways.
Episode. That Duke Austin was one of my favorite episodes. He brought some insight that you don't hear a lot about.
It was very well received out there as well. Like it's been to date being one of the most downloaded and viewed episodes yet, which is amazing because it's only been out for a month. But I think that is because it's like he's a guy that came from the same place that we all came from, just basically a grunt. Like he started as a grunt on a line crew, just holding the shovel, digging ditches, doing those simple things that grunts do. Get in the way. Like that's what he started as, and he worked for every single thing he got. And you don't just like make CEO of a publicly traded company without being put there for a reason. Like you're put in that position because people believe in what you're doing and your vision and that you can do that job. You don't just like get to do that job, which is super cool, especially for someone like him he wasn't the first CEO of Quanta Services. They had to put him in that position, right? And to do what he's done and be the visionary he's been in the industry, it's like just great insight for us as the boots on ground people to see like, this is what you can do. It's amazing. This is what you can do. And like, you got somebody in a position like that was in this position that we are in, so they understand, there's an understanding there, right? I don't know. I think that's so valuable and so good that there's that understanding that you've got this guy in this massive leadership position that knows exactly what it feels like to dig a ditch.
Yeah, that's a good reference. We were talking before about some things to talk about like that. And, you hear the quote, I think there was a stigma about college and the trades or working, the world needs ditch diggers too. Everybody's heard that saying. Yeah. But you know what, man? Those ditch diggers are making big money with a big retirement, healthcare. Ditch diggers is a good thing. Yeah. It shouldn't be a negative thing to think of that. So I talked to a couple people today about, college versus trades and what they're looking for in maybe a new apprentice or something like that. And like I was texting you that the same word came up. These weren't all IBW guys. I reached out to some other trades, and I was laughing when they told me this because it was something I sent you a couple months ago about what we should talk about. The word came up every time was attitude. It's like, man, your attitude towards everything in life can get you far, or not bring you somewhere.
100%.
So I thought it was cool to share. And I almost laughed when those people were telling me this. First thing out of his mouth was attitude. Other guys, it was a bunch of traits. I'm like, hey, does attitude? He's like, yeah, that's the number one thing we look for. I was like, man, that's crazy. We were just talking about that.
It's wild because I just like had this conversation with a couple of guys that were in the studio yesterday. There are a couple of linemen that are now instructors and trainers, and we dove into the subject of attitude again as well as one of the first things that they brought up when I asked a question like, what are you looking for? What's your advice for like this group of individuals out there who are just before pre-apprentices or becoming apprentices. Like, what's your advice for them? And they said the same thing. It's all about attitude. So I asked them kind of a follow-up question to that. It's like, what parts of attitude, like what does attitude, having a good attitude mean to you? So I asked you the same question. Maybe answer that for yourself, or maybe answer it for as well for like the other guys that you talk to. Like, what specifically about attitude are you looking for? Are they looking for? What's your thoughts on that?
A long time ago, I was working somewhere, and a big boss came out and says, "I need 3 things from you guys. I need safety, quality, and production. If you do something safe with a quality job, the production will be there." That kind of stuck with me. Like, oh, if you do those 3 things in order, which it doesn't matter if you're with a utility or a contractor, like you have to have all those things to be successful. So I called up one of the head trainers at our company. I'm like, "Hey, what do you look for in an apprentice that you interview?" And they said, teamwork, number one. If you're doing I know you guys do pre-apprentice stuff. If you're not willing to work on a team, communicate, be selfish. If you don't be selfish, works good as a team, doing the right thing when people aren't looking, like integrity. You have integrity. That's a big thing. I think all your listeners that are wanting to get in the trade, if you can do some of those things, have a positive attitude towards, hey, I didn't get this job, maybe I'll get the next one. Not, oh man, I'm done after that.
Yeah.
Stay with it. Keep going. I think these traits in any industry, any trade will help, especially in our trade that we know about. Because if you have an apprentice come in, and he's got a bad attitude, oh, I didn't get the service area I wanted. It's a good chance he's not gonna make it, or he's not gonna work safe when he gets out there. But just make the best out of every situation. I've been in the worst situation anybody can be in. I'm trying to make the best of it. I'm trying to turn things around. It's easy to go in a dark hole, but let's look positive. Let's try to do some good. I think that could, in my experience of life, I think I can tell that to other people to make them
I love
try to do good.
that integrity. That's exactly one of the threads these guys went down to. They used the word accountability, which is very, very close to integrity. You need kind of both, right?
Yeah.
They talked about accountability and how you should be accountable for all things that you do, whether they're, a mess up, or you mess something up and you muck something up, or you smash something, or you did something wrong. It's taking accountability for that, or did something right, but take the accountability in a humble way. Don't do it in a gloating showboat, that was me kind of way. But I think that's huge, because you see a lot of it in all people, but you see a lot of it in these new people into the industry. They don't want to make mistakes. And if they make mistakes, they're scared because they think they're going to get fired or let go, or on a crap crew. But sometimes that might be the thing that you need to eat, but be accountable for that. Hey, I smashed the mirror off the truck, trying to load a pole by myself. I'm going to take accountability. Don't just try to pass that off to the next guy or blame it on somebody else, or go, I don't know, truck was in the yard. I don't know what happened. Own up to that. Take accountability for that. That goes miles further than just trying to pass it off, because you're really not fooling anybody most of the time. People are smart. They're going to figure it out who it was. Even if they don't know for sure, they're going to have their suspicions. And if they think it's you, it's not going to bode well for you.
Yeah, especially now, man. We got cameras everywhere. They'll find out the truth, what happened.
True story.
You can't go anywhere without a camera. And I know you talk about leadership a lot, and I think that's a good trait of a good leader, that I see coming up is accountability. Hey, I screwed up on this one, guys. This is what we're going to do to make it right, or, lead from, I see that a lot.
What else does a good leader look like to you? I know we've kind of talked on this before, but
I think you have to do the things that you didn't like seeing another leader. That crew leader did this and I hated that. I was a lineman. Man, I hate it. When I become a crew leader, I am a crew leader, but when I become a crew leader, I'm not doing that. I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to eat my lunch while I expect everybody else to work. I'm going to be with the guys. I'm going to get out of the truck. Obviously there's, paperwork and switching orders a lot of time and stuff. Hey, I got to go look at this. So this for tomorrow will be set up. But if you don't like what that guy's doing as a leader, when you become in that position, don't be hypocritical and do that.
Yeah.
I see that.
I think there's a lot of that too,
ton,
because leaders don't bring the crew into what they're doing a lot of the time. So even if a thing is like, quote unquote, paperwork, I'm just sitting in the truck, I got to go do my paperwork. If the guys don't know what you're doing, then they're going to just assume whatever. They're going to assume you're not doing anything, like, oh yeah, the paperwork. But like, if you can like bring them into that when you have the time and ability to, and show them what goes into like creating switching orders, getting your permits in order, like getting things in order, getting the timesheets going. Like if they can get a glimpse of what it is and how much work that is, they're not going to assume you're doing nothing. They're still going to razz you and joke and whatever, you're still a foreman. Right. They're still going to poke, but like, at least they're going to know that, hey, Paul's got our back. Paul's doing what he can. Things are flowing nice. Things are, you're leading. You're doing the things that need to be done that really aren't the funnest things in the world to do. Like, you don't think that every foreman, most of them probably, if they're linemen, they want to be out on the truck, like in the bucket, on the tools, on the pole. That's where we want to be. Nobody wants to sit in the freaking truck. You just get kind of like in that, right?
Sometimes it's way easier, man, going up in the bucket. Usually the foreman's on the ground. He's doing all the groundwork with the apprentice, and you're going through the weeds, and this guy's up just holding the phase out of the way.
Yeah.
That's one of the best jobs there is going up and just tying a phase
or a bucket full of connectors, and you're going to town on a bank, and you're just in your zone. You're doing your thing. Like, yeah, that's the flow. That's the greatest. It's the greatest job in the world when you get a bucket full of tools and equipment, and you just get to go up and attack a pole. You got your bucket partner, maybe a couple other guys up there on the hooks or in another bucket, and you're just like going to town on a pole. It's the greatest job in the world. It's the best. I'd way rather do that than sit in the truck and work out the switching order for tomorrow.
Yeah. If it only paid the same, nobody'd be a foreman or a GF or anything. If it paid the same as a lineman that could just do the work, the work's the easy part sometimes.
True story.
Deal with the public and deal with customers that you just took out of power and, trying to explain to them what's going on. But
what's, refresh my memory again, what city do you work in?
I work in a city called LaSalle, Illinois. We're about an hour and a half outside Chicago. We're the farthest north Ameren, Illinois territory. So if you go to one of our far north transformers, you can actually see the city of Chicago, the Willis Tower, on a clear day. So we're pretty far. It's getting pretty cold up here. Maybe not. Well, you're in Texas, not cold.
Well, I'm in Texas now, but I'm usually way further north. No, it's all the same. Speak more on the guys that you talked to recently about trade school, and is there any more on like what they gave for advice on what they're looking for applications or people wanting to apply, come into the trade? Like anything more on what they're looking up besides attitude?
Number one thing, CDL. Get that out of the way. When you're getting in front of that interview, have your ducks in a row. Oh, you need to be this, this, and this. All right, I have 3 of the 4 done.
Dang.
You're going to be ahead of that guy who goes, well, I'm thinking about getting my CDL in a couple of weeks. I just got to take the test and that. Get that CDL. If you want to be in pretty much 80% of the trades, I think that CDL is a must. Even if you don't use it, you have it, and maybe it's time to get rid of somebody and you have a CDL and they don't, they're going to keep you to utilize you in another job that you might not do. I think work history they look at. Is this guy not working? Is he traveling, trying to find a job, maybe not his hometown? Is he working for another contractor and maybe he just wants to switch positions? Is he a laborer now? Maybe he wants to be an operator. Is he a groundman? Does he want to be a lineman? Is he a a helper for a plumber and wants to be a pipe fitter. I think any entry level, don't demean yourself with an entry level job. You're not going to be a journeyman right away. You're not going to be a foreman right away or a GF. If you can be a groundman, if you can run a suck truck, if you can get into the industry anyway and show a hard work ethic, they're going to find a spot for you. They're going to want you.
Yeah. Talked about this a lot with those guys yesterday too, was separating yourself from the pack, right? And that might mean you might be in a group of, say you're already a pre-apprentice and you've already gone to some climbing school, you've done all these things already, but you're still in a pool of people that you need to separate yourself from. Like, you need to do more things that separates you from those guys, because now you're in a group of people, you're 25 people, you've all got a CDL, you've all got this safety course, you've all done this, you've all got decent grades, you can climb. Like, what's different about you? What's going to separate you from the other 19 guys to make it so a company picks you over them, So you got to continually do more and, get to know those people that can help you answer those questions, like linemen, like people that work for the unions or the training committees or whatever that is. Get in front of those, find out how to network with those people, get in front of them, ask them these questions and be persistent with that.
Yeah. One of the training supervisors, the first thing he said was, when they go into an interview, is they ask you a situation, the task of it, the action, and the result. It's called STAR. I think a lot of big companies use this. When you come to a first interview with Ameren, they're not going to say, "Oh, how much how you want to be aligned with this, that." They're going to find out if you're a leader, if you're what situation have you been in, what action did you take, what was the result of that, and how could you have done it better. They're going to find out your problem solving ability before you go to the next step, which I didn't know they did that. It was like so long ago that I did an interview. I think this has all changed, but I think that's a good trait to maybe start thinking about if you get in front of an interview committee, is talk about some adversity you had, some situations you've been in where you could, the guy that I was talking to said it could be a football team you were on in high school and you were going into a game that you were an underdog and you rallied your team and I went to this quarterback and said, you can do this, and the action, you might have lost, but I put the situation where we could win.
I really like that, actually.
So I think that's something,
and that's something that anybody can do.
Yeah.
And you should be. I really like that. That's a good advice for my kids, not even getting into the trade, or getting into trades, just trying to get a job or trying to go do some sort of interview. I really like that. And that's something that anybody can work on and work on those stories ahead of time and perfect that, even if you're not specifically asked that question. I think if you did that in some sort of an interview, just express okay, even for example, we talk about leadership all the time, but here's an example of leading a situation. What if you're getting in front of some sort of interviewing committee or a single individual? Maybe they don't know quite what to ask you because they haven't even been in that situation of interviewing before. And they're like, okay, don't know what to ask you. Lead the situation. Be like, hey, how about I give you an example of a time or a couple of times. I've got a couple of really great examples of times that, I had a problem to solve. I helped solve the problem, brought a team together. We did this. This is what it is. And you walk through and tell that story. That's going to be super impressive to anybody. That's great. That's really cool.
How many interviews you go to? What can you tell us about yourself? Well, I can tell you some situations about where I've had some adverse conditions and I've overcome it by doing this. That would set yourself apart from other people, I believe.
Yeah, that's a great example, Paul. Actually, that's really cool. I'm going to start talking about that more because I believe that's something that's unique to the individual as well, right? That's an imprint on you as an individual, and everybody is going to have a different result, a different story, and people like stories. People love to consume stories. I think that's way more impressive than hey, I did this safety course or this first aid course. It's like, actually, okay, so like here's an example the other day. Bryce Hubbard, I've had him on this show a few times, and I'd love to have him back on to tell this story specifically, but I got a text from Bryce about a month ago now, and the text was, hey, you can take your safety home with you. And I was like, okay, explain. He's like, I brought a 2-year-old back to life today after this 2-year-old drowned in a pool. He's like, he was at a neighbor's house, or it was a friend's house or something like that. 2-year-old got into the pool, drowned completely, was gone. Bryce brought him back, brought him out of the pool, CPR, brought this 2-year-old back to life. 2-year-old is still alive today because of that scenario. And it's like these things that, how many times have you gone to a first aid course or a CPR course, and your feet are up on the desk or your feet are up on the table and you're on your phone and you're like, this sucks, we're getting paid a half day for this, whatever the scenario is. Like, how many times did you actually pay attention and get into learning about what it was and do it for that reason? Because you just don't know, like maybe you're in a situation like Bryce where you're off duty and something happens and you can save somebody's life. So anyway, telling a story like that would be freaking rad, right?
Man. Moves me. I seriously moves me when stuff like that happens. Like, and I think personally, you have a better chance of using that AED in your truck on a somebody in the public than you do on someone on your crew.
Yeah.
I think it's going to save a lot of lives. Everybody having
it's
those
actually
in the trucks
fact. Quanta Services, like a lot of these companies now, I just know because I'm working for Quanta, but Quanta implemented an AED program a few years ago. And I think year to date, I don't have the exact number, so forgive me out there, but it's like somewhere around in the 30s, I believe, people that they've brought back with the use of this ADD and that training that goes with like the whole program, right? And a large portion of that is public. It's a foreman on a crew or a lineman on a crew was in a situation where there was somebody from the public having a heart attack or cardiac arrest, and they've gone to the truck, had the AED on hand, knew how to use it, applied it, and brought that person back to life. And it's a way healthier number on the public side than it is the people that they're working with every day. So there's that situation as well, but just like such another great example, right? Know how to use your stuff. And safety should be just like safety gear like that, or safety training like CPR, AED training, whatever that is, should be just as important as the job you're doing, as the line work you're doing, and paying attention to that.
Yeah. Some of them do get a little mundane. The ocean training,
Roger that. I understand.
Yeah, and a lot of ours at Amber now are on the computer. They're not in person. They're slides on a thing. So, they get a little, they're great.
Yeah, that's all I have to say about that. Those Forrest Gump. That.
Yeah.
Another thing that came to mind, just because it's been something that I've been thinking about recently, especially with my current trip to Nepal and trekking to Mount Everest, is I started thinking about this, doing hard things and what that can do. So I'm preparing this solo episode where I want to talk about doing hard things, but I've been bringing this up around the office with different people, and they've really been contributing to this idea of doing hard things in life. And if you think about pre-apprentices and apprentice and these young people, a great majority of them, and I'm not going to say everybody, because it's obviously that's not everybody. You've got situations like veterans, or you've got situations like all kinds of other situations, people's lives where they've done hard things, but there's a good majority of people, especially young people, they just don't have that life experience yet. And this life experience of doing repetitive hard things and overcoming those hard things and building resilience and, adapting to that and understanding that, hey, this hard thing sucks in the moment, but 2 days from now, I'm not going to be doing this hard thing. And it's this too shall pass. And I just want to offer that advice. And I don't know if you've got anything to add to this, but offer that advice to those kids listening, or even the adults listening, you could be well into your 30s and still haven't done a hard thing in your whole life, that it's good to do hard things and put yourself in the situation of being uncomfortable. Like, we could even be just talking about public speaking here, but the more you put yourself in that situation, the more you're going to build resilience and understanding of what that feels like and be able to overcome that. I don't know if you got anything to add to that, but especially for advice for these young guys.
Yeah, I think if you expect to come into this trade and have an easy career of, it could be, 6 days out of 7, you're just doing something, but that 7th day, guess what? The storm rolls through, the rain's not stopping, and you got to get the lights on. You might have to, rain suits don't stop everything. So you got to get out there and, some of the toughest weather conditions. I think some of the toughest is the cold and the wind.
Yeah.
I've been miserable. You can't get warm enough. You can't have enough layers. We've had plenty of times where we're putting up wire and a guy would go up and get it in the blocks. Then we'd have to come down and switch. Other guy'd go up, sag it. It's just so cold that it's dangerous. Snowmobile helmets on, and that's the stuff you maybe see pictures of it sometimes. That's the really hard stuff. So I think that's it's a great career and a great job. And it's very satisfying because when you're the guys going out there doing it, there's nobody else out there. There's no trucks on the road. There's no cars on the road, and we're heading into the thick of it.
It gave me the ability, like, on this trek. So, like, just flew halfway around the world, the other side of the globe, to a very, like, third world-ish country. And then the day started out, so trekking to Everest Base Camp. The day started out at 2 a.m. You're driving in a tiny little van full of people for 4 hours through the hill country. They call it the hill country, but in most countries, these hills are already mountains. It's just that these hills / mountains are shadowed by the Himalayan mountains. So you drive through these hills, windy, shitty little roads with vertical drop-offs, thousands of feet below, and you get to this airport. This tiny little airport with these tiny little airplanes, crammed full of people and baggage, and you land in this little town this little, like, village in the mountains called Lukla. And the Lukla airport is said to be one of the most dangerous airports in the world. The runway is 350 feet long. I believe it's like 300 or 350 feet long, like pretty short. Like, picture 350 feet,
yeah.
Like 300-foot poles, and your runway is done. And it's uphill into the mountain, and the other side of it's just a cliff drop off. And you land into that full flaps, full brakes. It's like, with a plane load of people and bags and all this kind of stuff. And that's where you start your journey. And then it's thousands of elevation feet gain over the course of 7 to 9 days, sleeping in very remote places. Like, there was a couple of nights where I slept and you could hear rats and stuff in the ceiling, just running around, skimpering around, and it's cold. There's no heat. You're sleeping fully clothed in sleeping bags in the mountains, eating very basic food like chapati bread and boiled eggs and garlic soup and, like, black tea. And, like, that's it. Like, I literally lost 13 pounds in 7 days on this trek.
So I got that written down. What was the food like? Give a little something about the food.
The food, like, nothing against Nepalese people or their food, or maybe it's just me personally, but the food was not, like, amazing. The food was like, I'm trying to say it as humbly and as nicely as possible. But like, think about the mountains. Like, I was strict vegetarian diet too. Like, I'm not eating meat especially in the Himalayan mountains, because all of the meat is all the meat has taken the same trip you just took. So it's flown into this tiny little airport, and it's by that time thawed, right? And then everything in that mountain system, it's because of the elevation, you can't fly anything in and out. Like, I'll talk about the helicopter experience in a second, but even helicopters, they can't pack very much for weight because their starting elevation is like 14,000 feet. Like that's Lukla. It's like 14. We were like, I don't know if it's 12,000 feet. Everest Base Camp is just shy of 18,000 feet above sea level itself. Like very thin air, low oxygen. Helicopters struggle even to fly up there, right? So everything packed in and out of this country, or in and out of this trail network and these villages, is all done on the back of a human being, on the back of a yak, or they called them horses, but they looked more like donkeys. They're about the size of a donkey. They're a little mountain horse, and just rugged. And these porters were amazing. They put they'd make these burlap straps that would go over your head, and then they'd use just a series of like baler's twine and ropes to tie bags and propane bottles and boxes of apples and meat sacks and all this stuff on their back. And they would pack like 250 pounds. And these are small Nepalese people, not very large people. They're not big football players that are 6'5". Like they're like 4 foot something with small legs, packing 300 pounds on their back in the Himalayan mountains and crushing you, like beating you to places by hours. It's insane. And yeah, like it's doing like where I was getting at with the whole thing was like trying to set this up, like doing hard things in line work, and life, but doing hard things in line work prepped me for this experience in the Himalayan mountains, like hiking for 7 days to an elevation of 18,000 feet. Your oxygen levels are very low. You're tired. It's hard to even take a step. It's hard to breathe. I put a few posts up on my Instagram, and there was a couple moments there at 18,000 feet. Actually, it was a little above 18,000 feet because you had the opportunity after you came back from base camp to climb a little higher to try to get some better views of Everest. And so I went as far up Kalapatar as I could, which was another couple hundred meters or another, few hundred feet. And you can hear my breath. And I'd been standing there just chilling for like 10 minutes. So it wasn't like I was hiking or running or anything like that. And you can hear it in my breath, just very, like it's slow, it's labored. It's like barely exists because like there's just no oxygen. There's no oxygen, and the air is just like very thin as well. There's just like nothing to it. There's no substance to it. So really, like, it's hard, and it's like minus 15 Celsius, 5 degrees Fahrenheit. Like it's cold. It's all of these situations. But anyway, I was able to just go, hey, one foot in front of the other gets me to where I want to be. As long as I can walk and I can still breathe, I can get there. It's not going to happen 5 minutes from now, but hey, it's going to happen at the end of the day. I'm going to get there if I just keep putting one foot in front of the other. And you know what? This is really hard right now. It's hard physically, mentally, emotionally. Like been eating crappy food, sleeping in horrible conditions, hiking for 12 hours a day, extreme elevations, lots of climbing, all this kind of stuff, right? It's hard. It's freaking hard, but it's super rewarding for where you get to go. And then understanding that, hey, this is going to pass. 2 days from now, 3 days from now, I'm back in America. I'm back in Canada. Gorging on barbecue in Texas yesterday. Like, you know what I mean? Like it's such a mental thing that lots of these youngsters coming into it, I see it. I keep going back to the young guys just because this is where I see it the most. I don't see it in the old, like the vets like us, not like military vets, but vets in the trade like us. Like we know how to get through stuff like this. We know that it will pass. Like you don't even have to think about the hard shit that you've been through. I could not imagine, but I can imagine also the resilience that you've built up to get through other things that may have been hard to you prior to the things you've just gone through, right? That may have been like really difficult to go through. Like now you're just like, that's like, what are you complaining about? That's easy, like that's so simple.
I definitely don't like to hear people complain about little things. I can tell you that,
Right?
it's that aren't that big a deal. That's what I've come to learn in the past year and a half, 2 years. Yeah, I like that. This too shall pass. I have been hearing that a lot online, and it's something you can tell yourself that can get you through a lot. You know, we used to work on a storm would go through in our area. We would work some pretty insane hours. We just wouldn't go home for 2-3 days. We would just stay. We don't do that anymore. We have hour limits. It's good. It's good for our industry that they're
Sure.
stopping this. Probably a couple years ago they stopped. You can't work over so many hours, which is good. Sleep is really good. Maybe when you're 20, but when you become 40, I remember probably younger days when I started, you never thought to stop and go eat. And the older guys go, no, it's 6:00. All the restaurants are still open. We're stopping and eating because we got a long night ahead of us. That stuff you learn from the older guys. It's like, take your meal because we got 8 more hours and 10 more pulls down, and it's raining. We got to get some fuel in us. This is your time to rest. You sit at a restaurant, get some good food in you. Yeah. Did your body recover from that trip? Was it hard on you when you got back? I'm curious with the oxygen and the food and
Yeah.
how did you
So
come home to?
I'll go through the last couple of days. It was actually quite intense. So it was myself and my girlfriend and a group of people that we went with. And the group of people were just amazing. Like we were a random group that kind of came together through a training gym that we're affiliated with. But it was a random group that none of us had really ever met each other before. But they happened to all be really, really great people, which was amazing because they're super encouraging. That helped. Had they been like horrible people, that would have been really rough too. So there's a lesson there as well. Like be a good person. It really helps you and it helps others. Don't be an asshole. So my girlfriend and I, Vic and I, it was hard. It was hard on both of us. And she started to get sick in the last couple of days. The low oxygen and the cold weather and the bad sleep and the bad food was like just starting to wear her down physically and immune wise. So she started to get sick in the last couple of days, and she just like such a trooper, like pressed on and made it to base camp with me, and probably shouldn't have, probably should have stopped, probably should have went down to lower elevation and got out of that altitude, because she started to develop altitude sickness, right, from the lack of oxygen. But she made it to base camp, and then to get to base camp, you pass through this little village called Gorakshep. And Gorakshep is basically the last place that has buildings, has food, has place to sleep, like that sort of stuff. And then it's from Gorakshep, it's a 2-hour trek to base camp one way. And then you trek back. There's nobody staying at base camp right now because it's not actual climbing season for the mountaineers. So we got to base camp, and then we made it back to Gorakshep. And I kind of left her with the guide because I was a little quicker, and I wanted to get back to Gorakshep and then climb Kalapatar as far as I could to try to get better views for taking photos of Everest and things like that. And just to go higher, I don't know. I just had that mentality. And so I left her with the guide, which was fine. It was all good. The guides were fantastic. And she was like, yeah, go ahead. I can make it back with Sambu, and we'll get back to Gorakshep. So anyway, I went up Kalapatar and got back to Gorakshep, and she was back by the time I got back. But her oxygen levels had dropped to 42%. And if you know anything about like your oxygen absorption rate in your body, like medical staff will put oxygen on people if it's down at like 82%. It's like
Oh, jeez.
you'll get oxygen then, right? You get the mask and you start getting fed oxygen because your percentages are low. She was at like 42%. So I got her into a small little clinic that was up there, just a couple people working. I say clinic, but it was really just like a garden shed with some supplies in it. It's pretty minimal, right? With some medical supplies. And then anyway, they put her on oxygen for 3 hours and got her oxygen percentage back up to about 72%. And then we slept in another garden shed, non-insulated. It was between minus 15 and minus 20 Celsius. So 5 degrees to 0 degrees Fahrenheit, like pretty freaking cold, right? And we slept in that temperature overnight. My water bottle froze solid. My backpack froze solid. And I gave her all the good sleeping bags and warm hot water bottles to try to keep her good for the night. And I just like layered up in all the clothes I could wear and got in this old thin shitty sleeping bag that I found up there. I got in this sleeping bag and I was wearing all these clothes. But the problem with the thin air and the low oxygen is, and when you're wearing restrictive clothing, is you like stop breathing during the night because it's so restrictive that the air pressure is so low. It doesn't force oxygen, like doesn't force air into your lungs. When you're at sea level, it's really easy to breathe because you breathe and there's air pressure to force air into your body, right? But when you're at elevation and you're a bit restricted because you're wearing tons and tons of clothing, you end up like stopping. It's like sleep apnea. You just like stop breathing and then you wake up gasping. Like you wake up just trying to suck oxygen in, and then the oxygen levels are low too. So you're like, anyway, that process of shivering and sucking oxygen in and just like stopping breathing all night made me pretty sick the next day too. Like I woke up super, super low energy in the morning. It's like hard to stuff your sleeping bag back into its sack. Like your couple arm pumps into the sleeping sack and then you're just like sitting there like trying to breathe, trying to recover from just that process. So it took like an hour just to pack your gear up, like simple sleeping bags and your clothes and just like pack your stuff up, and it's still minus 15. And anyway, I got her and an emergency heli evac off the mountain right from Gorkshep the next morning. She really needed it. I probably could have struggled down to lower elevation. We were just going to go down to the next village down, which was a full day's hike down, and then helicopter from there down to Lukla and back to Kathmandu. But I got us an emergency heli vac right from Gorkshep up near base camp all the way down. And as soon as you get to lower elevation, it's almost instant where you start noticing a difference just in the amount of oxygen, air pressure. You just like start to feel better. She ended up with pneumonia, so she's like struggling with that after. Ended up in the hospital for a couple of days in Kathmandu due to pneumonia. But you start recovering instantly. It's amazing. As soon as you get down the mountain and into better elevation and better oxygen levels, like it's unbelievable. Your body just starts to recover instantly.
Yeah, good for you to recognize that it's time. I think that's something you could bring to our trade too. If you see somebody that's too tired, too sick, people try to push through things that they're tough, and it's okay to like check out a guy's like, hey man, we're gonna call it. I think you need to, take a little nap, or you need to, especially when we start, then you had to drive in a truck from job to job, getting on an interstate. It's okay to take a little break, especially if you're working these storms, these long hours. Don't be afraid to pull over, take a little nap, not a big nap, but just a little one just to make it safe home.
Well, you're 100% right. It's the training. It's a large part due to the training in the trade, and just like in this trade and in this industry, if you're in it, if you're locked in, if you're not just like floating through it, you really get good at like decision making and solving problems. It's something you do every day, right? You're paying attention to the job you're doing, and you're paying attention to the men you're working with, right? And then you're making decisions based off of all of the inputs you're getting, right? If it's on the job stuff, you're making instant decisions on, like that energized cut and kick you're doing, or kick and set for whatever part of the country you're from, that, like you're making instant decisions based off of the inputs. Okay, I got to move this here. The bucket truck's got to move over there. That phase has got to move there. Like you're getting through your work and your job, but you're problem solving. That's what you're doing all day long. And then with the people you're around all day, you're also like, all right, Jimmy's like suffering today. He's gone through some shit at home. He's not squared away. I'm going to have to make decisions. And like you're making decisions, but you're aware of that stuff, right? It directly applied to my situation in the mountains. Like my situation's not a crazy situation, but it's amazing how many people up there weren't even paying attention to the people around them and what was going on with them. Because like when this stuff is happening to you, and if you're somewhat of an introverted person, you're not going to be speaking up. You're just like sitting in the corner, kind of like suffering, right? So it's recognizing that like, hey, it looks like you're breathing a little labored. Let's like check your oxygen levels. Let's like, are you feeling all right? Are you doing all right? I noticed you haven't eaten in a day. Like that's not good either. How have you been drinking water? Okay, man, your oxygen levels are horrible. Let's get some oxygen. Like, let's start making decisions and like make decisions. Like, I'm going to get you in a clinic. You need to get on oxygen. We're going to find out how to do this. And then no, we're not going to push you to hike down the mountain. I don't care what the cost is. Like there's currently a $6,000 bill on my credit card. I'm still fighting insurance, not fighting insurance. It's still going through the insurance process to get that money back. But that's what it took. It took, here's my credit card, swipe it. She needs to get off the mountain. We need to get off the mountain. We need to get down to lower elevation or it's not going to be good for her. Like she could freaking die. So, but it's like making those decisions, but it's amazing how people like, they don't make the decisions or they delay them so long because they're just not aware of their situational surroundings, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's a good sign of a good leader too, to recognize if their crew needs something that they're not saying. Is it time for if it's 100%. A hot day, is it in your gloving? Is it time to take 10, get some water in the guys? Mm-hmm. Maybe they're too prideful to come down, but hey, let's shut her down for a little bit, guys.
Yeah.
We got to get this done, but we don't got to get it done right now. So I think when you talk about leadership, I think that's something that all of us could work on is recognizing what maybe, or even like an apprentice who doesn't want to say something, you can, hey, something's not going right with this guy. He's not used to working these hours or it's hot out and he's never been in a tough situation. Like we talk about, he's not drinking a bottle of water when he should, when you're taking a break cause he's, doing whatever. But I think that's a good sign of a good leader.
We had, and I don't say we, like it wasn't Quanta companies, but we in Texas, where I am right now, Texas, I think lost 2 line workers. I believe it was line workers this year due to, like it was a hydration incident, like heat stroke hydration because of the hot summer they had here in Texas. And I just like, I wonder how much of that was potentially preventable, either by the people that it happened to or the people around them, just not being situationally aware, not paying attention to the people they're around and noticing the signs. Or maybe it's further into that, like not paying attention in the training that they maybe had or maybe didn't have. But if they had training, hydration training, heat stroke illness, heat illness training, maybe they weren't paying attention because they didn't pay attention that day. They didn't care about it, but maybe they could have, right? Like, I don't know. I question that stuff because like it's directly relevant to the line trade. You have to be situationally aware, pay attention to the people around you and the things you're doing in order to survive it, period.
Yeah, I think you're going to hear a lot more about hydration coming up in the next couple of years, but there's some good companies out there that do a lot of good, not get away from the Gatorade and the sugary drinks and maybe add a liquid IV or something to your bottle of water to get what you need instead of a sugary drink.
I just talked to Dylan Coach today. I've had Dylan Coach on the show from Working Athlete. It's the Working Athlete's great product, but just what's best and what I like about Working Athlete is they care about educating the community as well as providing a product, right? They provide a great product, but I like the education they provide behind the product. They're willing to like show up to your job site, to your company's safety meeting, whatever it is, to your trade show with a workshop of information around heat illness and, just like show up and deliver what they know about this thing that they've been studying for so long, which is what I really like about them guys. I'm going to have Dylan on the show again. He's been on a couple of times now, but I'm going to have him on the show again in January to talk about some new findings and some new things, and just to push that message out again for the spring and summer months, because that's when the heat illness ramps up, especially in these places that get hot in January, like Texas. Like starts getting warm again, and heck, man, it's like 82 degrees yesterday here. Like it's not boiling, but that's enough to get some damage, and it's middle of winter.
Yeah, it got up to like 70 here in Illinois, and 2 weeks ago, Halloween, it was 22 and snowing. So it's crazy, the swings.
Yeah.
We still went trick-or-treating, though. We were out there.
Yeah. Which is like exactly what people sometimes don't realize as well. It's like you're not prompted, like your body's not prompted to drink liquid when it's cold out. You just don't want it as much, right? But your risk of dehydration is still extremely there, if not even more, because of the cold temperatures and losing perspirating under warm gear because you're doing that hot, cold thing, but you're not drinking fluid and not hydrating yourself. So it's the risk of a dehydration and that sort of thing is definitely still there, even in the middle of wintertime, just for the fact that you're not hydrating yourself enough because you don't feel like drinking water.
Yeah, I definitely don't do in the winter as much for sure, but
right,
it's a good idea.
Yeah, heck yeah.
Yeah, you drink coffee, which is
it's made from water, right?
Yeah, it's mostly bean water.
On the side of mental health and managing stress, I wanted to ask you, what are you doing to work through the things that you work through? Not that there's any one specific answer, but I've been talking a lot lately about mental health as well, and asking people that, might actually know something about managing stress, managing mental health. Is there any advice or, tricks, tips, things for people, tools for people, going through tough shit to manage that and help through that?
Yeah. I could talk a lot about that. Get into a couple things, but I think in my situation, going through what I did with my daughter, I don't think I had any mental health problems before that, but stress toppled with, trying to do quality of life for your daughter, it all came to an end last year. Then that month after her passing, you're kind of in survival mode. Your body goes into survival mode. There's a lot of emotions, then you kind of step back. And we chose to see a grief counselor as a family. There was a person we knew who was a child grief specialist. We reached out to him so he could talk to our son, because how do you be an 8-year-old boy and try to think of what just happened, And even as parents, we needed somebody to talk to. And I remember went to a couple sessions. I remember leaving the session and a call out came. It was my first call out I took coming back after her passing. And I went to the call out, and our shop, everybody knows it's not we talk about everything. What'd you have for dinner last night? Whatever. And the guy asked me, he's like, so what were you doing when they called? And I didn't say anything. I said, nothing. Like it was a stigma that what just happened. And I thought about that the whole time driving out to the job. I went to the job and I went up to the guy. I said, hey man, I was at counseling tonight for my grief. This is what we're doing. It's like, I don't know why I didn't tell you that. I don't know if it was my pride, but I think we need to put pride aside, and grief counseling did help. We don't go as much anymore with, life gets busy and you cancel a session and this, that. But I think it's okay to ask for help. I think a lot of people don't. And I think that stigma and the pride of being a rough, tough lineman, I had to set it aside and say, you know what, I'm not ashamed of what what I did. So I need to tell my friend that I did it. He gave me a hug and just told me he loved me. That's what you needed. If you talk about things that you're doing or what's going on with somebody, there's not going to be a stigma behind it, or there shouldn't be. Or if there is, that guy's not your friend. He's not going to help you. More 9 times out of 10, these guys are going to, hey, if you need something, if you need somebody to talk to, I get so many texts or after my daughter passed away of, I'm here for you if you need to talk about something. So many of my friends reached out to me. I'm just here for you if you need to talk about something. I'm here. Not that I did or not that I reached out, but it was just that option. So I feel I can do that with other people. I'll reach out to a friend. Hey man, I'm here for you. I try to do that more than I've ever have. If you need something, I'm here. If you need to talk about anything. So I think step 1 is like, if you're going through something, it's okay to ask for help. It might not be a grief counselor, but there's plenty of online resources. I know all insurances offer mental health counselors now. You can get on Zoom, just something like this. It's all private. You don't have to talk about it if you don't want to. But there's so many resources of things that can help you that's covered by your insurance. You don't have to, there's resources out there.
I found out about there's like text-based resources too. I don't know if you've ever used them, but I just found out about these through a friend that was going through he just needs to, reach out and talk to somebody, right? But he likes to talk to professionals and doesn't always have the ability to like reach out and do it through Zoom or set up a meeting or appointment. And there's this, I think it's actually, it might even be BetterHelp, betterhelp.com or whatever. But there's text-based stuff too, where you can get help just all via text. Like he was telling me he was coming back from a place and he didn't have this ability to like go in person or even go online because he needed to catch a flight, but he just had to work through some stuff. He had a couple hours in the airport and he could use his account and text a therapist, and they would text back and like help him work through what he was dealing with. And it was enough to like get him back down off of cloud 9 and like, rebalance him and get him into good headspace so he could get home, get on that flight, get home and, further deal with it after the fact. But like, that's something that's pretty amazing too. That's pretty amazing tech in this day and age, to just be able to like jump on your phone through your account, text a professional and instantly get, a great conversation going, and help you work through some stuff too. So like, I know I lost somebody recently. I didn't know him extremely well personally, but I had worked with him in the past. I definitely talked to him a few times in the past, helped him get a job in the past. And he was close with a lot of people I was close with. And he lost his life due to mental health issues. And it's sad. We don't need that. So that's why thanks for like sharing about it, because like it's important for people to reach out. And
it's super important. And I don't consider myself depressed. I just consider myself sad a lot, which I think is a good thing. A counselor said sad, it stands for something, serotonin, this, and this. Like when you cry, it does good things for your brain. Like don't try to hold it in. And also I wanted to bring up about if you are going through a lot of mental stuff, you should go see a doctor, and there's laws that protect your job. The FMLA stuff for the federal government, the Family Medical Leave Act. If you're really going through some stuff, you see a doctor and you're worried about your job, there's laws in place. They help me. I just want people to reach out. If that's a worry of theirs, is losing their job, there's some laws that will protect you.
That's amazing too, because that's definitely that's definitely an added stress. Like especially, I've heard that a lot with veterans, especially when they're in the military. They didn't want to and this is part of the thing that leads into PTSD and like further mental trauma, because they couldn't talk about it. They felt like they couldn't talk about it because if they felt like they talked about it or brought it up with the medical staff, VA or like whatever, or like just with the medical staff in the military community, they felt like they might potentially lose their job in the military and not get put back on duty and those sorts of things because of that situation, which is just wrong, because maybe it's just like a bit of shit they got to work through and it can be dealt with and they could move on in their career. So same thing in the civilian side of things. That's good to know that those laws exist and that there is some protection anyway.
Yeah. Yes. It's great. FMLA, if you want to look it up online.
Cool. Is there anything else extremely on your heart to talk about? I've had you for over an hour now. Time goes quick.
I wanted to talk about the team I met from Brazil.
Oh, yeah.
The team I met from Brazil. Just first event of the rodeo, get in line. The line is around the fence, and it's like, oh, shit, we should have got here earlier. And the team in front of us randomly was the Brazil team. And you want to talk, well, there was 4 guys there. There was a interpreter who wasn't much of English, but he spoke broken English. They speak Portuguese there.
Okay.
Like, does anybody speak Portuguese? But he was the nicest guy, showed us pictures of his family, talked about they learned to climb 2 weeks before the rodeo. Buckingham gave them all sets of everything. I don't know where exactly they were when they learned. They were in the States for about a month. And super nice guys. Talked about Brazil, about how much money we make here compared to them. We make about 5 times the money in America than they do there. So he, like, just again, amazing. Talking to a lineman, doesn't matter where it is, what comes up, how much money you making, man. You on 510s down there in Brazil or what? What's your per diem?
That's amazing.
So, yeah, great guys. I think I sent you a couple pictures of them. We're Instagram buddies now. I just saw today there's a rodeo in Brazil they're doing right now.
No way.
I think I sent it to you on Instagram in your okay. But I don't know if he's private or not, the guy. But I'm like, oh, they're setting up for a rodeo. They had 4 teams set up. Everything's coned off. They don't climb down there. They use ladders, which I don't know if they're what they were doing for climbing. They just had the thing, because we were talking about hooks and going up, and we use ladders. And he would come to a word he couldn't say, so he'd go on his phone, and then he would say the word and this and that. And then when they got into the event, they'd have the judge read, the judge reads all this, this is what you got to do, this is your practice. He would take a picture on it and put it in Google Translate. Then he could translate all the steps. So it was pretty amazing watching them guys work. It was super interesting.
That's so cool. I love how, like, it's the International Lineman Rodeo for a reason, but I love it when there's people from outside of North America and teams from outside of North America that make it there, like outside of Canada and the United States, that make it to the rodeo, and you can interact with them, right? Like, that is, it's great, because I see a lot of stuff on Instagram, a lot of comments on, like photos and videos of guys using ladders, for example, right? And I've had this conversation with Jimmy from New Zealand, Jimmy Moranis from New Zealand, a couple of times on the show. New Zealand, they use ladders as well. All the wood that they have in that part of the world is extremely hard wood, or it's like, it's not straight wood. Like, they don't have pine forests and cedar forests the same as we do to like get the same sort of poles and wood structures. So they use ladders, but they'll get comments on Instagram and social, just like, what are you doing using that ladder? You're like, just a lot of like negative shit about what they're doing. And he's like, what are you talking about? This is normal. This is our procedures. Like, this is just everyday life. So it's like, it's cool to actually get in the situation and get guys from Brazil or guys from wherever in the world in America at an international event like that, and have Americans and North Americans talking to these guys like, hey, what do you do? What are you making? What do you like? What's your procedures like?
How much you make? Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah. They were all salary, no overtime too. So,
wow.
They go out and
wow.
I thought that was interesting.
Blows my mind.
So if you can
right?
figure out what a journeyman lineman makes on average, 5 times less than that, it's not that much,
No kidding. Well, if you actually just take like like your average journeyman lineman rate and you base it, the average salary rate at 40 hours a week for 52 weeks a year, it barely cracks $100,000.
Yeah.
And I don't think you'd find
Yeah.
a lineman out there that's making $100,000.
Yeah, no comment. We
Yeah.
don't like to get into money too much, but I can tell you what,
but
man,
we do in private though, right?
What I've been seeing, if you're a young person looking for a career,
Yeah.
this might be the best and most recession-proof job you can get.
Yeah.
We just had a meeting with one of our new vice presidents. He was going over what's going on with our company, and he talked about MISO, which is like the middle of the country transmission projects. They just got not Ameren, but MISO, the whole Midwest, from like Iowa to Indiana, up and down north and thing. They just got approved to do $10 billion worth of transmission work, and they're looking in the next, I think he said 6 months, another $30 billion released. So there's going to be a need for linemen forever.
Yeah.
You know, AI can't put up a down wire.
No.
Not yet.
Not yet, no.
They might be able to call you out and troubleshoot it and say, oh, the wire is between here and here, but you're going to need a guy going out to do it. It's just one of the best career choices I've ever made. So happy. And if you're thinking about it, man, it's something to get your CDL, get your books in line.
I've talked about it quite a bit on the podcast, but like I always get into these conversations still, like they don't happen as much, but when you get into these conversations with people around COVID and that whole era of the pandemic, and you get into like, how did it affect you and your family? And outside of like the whole like COVID itself debate, just like when you're talking about like how it affected your family, how it affected your job, that sort of convo, it was, I always get into this and say like, they asked me the question, like, how did it affect you? I'm like, I didn't really skip a beat. I traveled the whole time, the whole 2 years. I was, 6 major airports a month. Like I was traveling from Texas to British Columbia, every month. And I always had work. I would show up. I remember a couple times it was easier for me to drive across the border from Canada, drive across the border to Seattle. So I'd leave Vancouver, drive across the border to Seattle, and then I'd fly from Seattle to Texas, because it was easier to drive across the border than to fly across the border. During the real like heart and thick of it, you found some workarounds, right? But I remember like showing up to these border crossings that I remember crossing in the past and having like 5-hour wait times, all lanes full, like 5-hour wait times just to cross the American-Canadian border. I'd show up and there's one lane open and I'd be the only car there. Like it felt like apocalyptic. And I'd get there at this border crossing and I was expecting to like have a real hard time crossing. But once I answered the simple questions about who I was, what I was doing, and what I was going to do, they were like, all right, sir, see you later. Thanks. Thanks for doing what you do, and carry on. But that was line work. That's what I was doing. I was going to train individuals to do this job that is very much a necessity and very much an essential service. And it was hardly even questioned. And I didn't skip a beat the whole pandemic, which I thought was really amazing. So like, it's just like you say, like global recession, global pandemic, this industry is one of the best industries that you could be in for like having a job, keeping a job, making a good living, providing for your family, providing for your future, saving for retirement, all of the above. This industry can provide that. And I just think that's amazing for sure.
Yeah. And even, I talked about all the money for transmission, but what do you hear every day on the news about something? Electric cars.
Yeah.
We're going to have to do so much upgrade to our grid distribution wise to provide every house with enough power to charge their car and run their air conditioner and run this and run like
100%.
The demand and the work that's going to come out, I think, is going to be in the next 20 years. It's going to be crazy.
Yeah, man. That's super cool. All right. Couple more closing questions or what?
Yeah, I think so. I think we've been on for a while.
You ready? You ready for them? All right, we'll give you a couple more.
I didn't even get any heads up on this one.
I'll try to pick a couple new ones here. I can't remember exactly what I asked you last time, but I think I got a couple new ones here. So if you had to eat one meal for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Ribeye steak.
Ribeye. Hey, yeah.
Ribeye steaks.
What would you put on it? You got any spices for that, or just salt and pepper?
Yeah, salt, pepper, maybe some blue cheese.
Damn.
Blue cheese on top of ribeye steak. Oh, my wife's like, "Oh, you're gonna cook another one?" I love ribeye steaks.
Heck yeah.
That's great. That was easy.
You could probably you could honestly live off of that too, like, and be probably healthier than you are now. Best advice you've ever received as a lineman?
I did answer that one before, but I think it holds true of showing up. Show up on time.
Right.
I think I did rethink some of the questions you asked, but that one I'll stick to that one.
If you could have coffee with one historical figure, who would that be?
I have been thinking about this one. I think right now I'd like to sit down with Elon Musk. I think because anybody in the past, you've seen what they've done, but he's somebody that's looking to the future. So I'd like to see what the future looks like in his eyes, because he's thinking galaxy-wise, not on the Earth. Yeah. So I think he's somebody I'd like to talk to.
Yeah, that's interesting. Such an interesting and unique dude. I know, like, super controversial right now, obviously, but I think it takes
depends how much Twitter you look at.
True story, dude. True story. All right, one more. If you won the lottery today, it was $10 million. Small lottery, I guess it's not the Powerball. It could be $100 million. Say you had $100 million today. What's the first thing you'd go out and buy? What's that dream thing?
A Ferrari.
Yeah?
Ferrari.
Heck yeah.
And then I'd take the rest and start a foundation and help a bunch of people.
For sure.
But I'm going to get that Ferrari. I think for $100 million, I think I could do both.
You could definitely do both. Come on. That's rad.
Yeah. We actually talk about, we play the lottery at work a lot, if it gets up to whatever. And my buddy would ask, hey, what are you going to buy? I go, Ferrari, man. 100%.
So sick. Love it, dude. Well, it was great talking to you again. Always appreciate the conversation and always welcome on the show. I'll keep promoting Climbing for Kids. Definitely when this episode goes out, I guess your Instagram is the place to go right now, or do you got the website still?
Instagram. Yeah, it's an email address, Climbing for Kids, just like before. We have somebody monitoring that. If you're a company that wants to get involved, I really want to get more companies involved. There's so many companies that go to the rodeo that we could do something together and make this bigger. I really think that's where we need to turn to next year, is getting more companies involved.
Nice, man.
And thank you to everybody that's donated. Friends, family, companies, people, like, thank you.
Heck yeah, dude. Love it. Well, I appreciate you. It's good seeing you again.
You too, brother.
All right, guys. I hope you got some value from the episode. If I could ask you to do a favor for me, go to whatever podcast platform you listen to these on, or if you're watching on YouTube, just make sure you're following and subscribing. Those are the biggest things. If you could leave a like and a comment as well, I would love to interact with you. But make sure you're subscribed and follow. It really helps us out. Helps push this podcast out to the world. All right, guys. Thank you very much. See you in the next one. Peace.